Alina is good enough for calling me. This is my calling name. I don't like if you call me Airi. And I'm professor of sociology, but my entire career I have been a youth researcher already over 20 years. My topics have a little bit varied, but recently youth participation and also youth participation via social media has been my main topic. I don't know, Maarja, would you introduce yourself maybe later or now? Yeah, because basically this is the outline of our presentation. First, I will talk trends in youth participation, and then just a little bit about civic competencies and youth experiences, and then Maarja will take over, and she will talk about learning to participate, the ways of learning to participate, especially in formal education, and about the new forms of governance, which have to take into consideration new forms of participation. And basically, yes, this is the first topic, and here I'm continuing a little bit what Dan was already mentioning, that we are currently talking about the topic that young people are not so much interested in conventional political participation, and well, we can discuss about this topic at least already since 1970s. It's also kind of debatable, maybe even more, and that has been interpreted in several ways. I put here down a couple of ideas. It has also been seen as a threat to democracy, that what is happening then in our society, and then the assumption have been that a big part of the younger generation are pretty passive. But there is also another approach discussed by many social scientists already for 20, 30 years, that actually the question is not so much that young people are passive, but they are just participating in different ways. That was also actually already pointed out by Dan. And what I'm doing now, I'm just introducing mostly academic concepts of how to which would help to make sense of new ways of participation. And before that, I mentioned that there are a couple of issues that we have to consider when we are talking about participation. First of all, that maybe nowadays young people are not so much interested of state-based politics and state-oriented activism only, because there are a lot of global issues. Young people are more informed and concerned, and it's also that if you're talking about political participation, then it's kind of transitioned into the spheres of everyday activities, and maybe currently the concept of political participation has been expanding also to this kind of activities which were not considered political in the conventional sense of term. And what is actually important to keep in mind is that young people's participation is increasingly entangled with social media. And one concept I'm starting, I find it very useful because it's a little bit deconstructing this more traditional concepts of active and passive use. I personally do not consider this too useful nowadays, and this Standby Citizen by Swedish social scientist is actually pointing to the topic that what I believe to be true, that the majority of the young people, they are actually neither passive nor active, even though there are, of course, overly active young people, and there are maybe also some of the people who are completely passive, and this is often maybe connected to the, I don't know, marginalization and other topics. But most of the young people, they are actually informed about politics, and they are bringing also up the political issues in their everyday life context. So basically, they are alert all the time. So they are not maybe active all the time, but they are becoming now and then overtly active as well when they are. Well, I put here just couple of reasons. Actually, Amna has a much longer list of these reasons how these standby citizens are becoming overtly active. But basically, here are the most easiest one that they become more active if they are asked to join in, if there is something what they consider very important. For example, they are invited to some kind of public meeting or protest on the topic what they consider important, and if they are feeling that they can make the difference, or that is connected to their self-realization. And also participation nowadays is not maybe only connected with the aim to the major changes in society. Young people are often what is called everyday makers. Basically, what they want to do is just to make a small change in their community. So it's rather than giving trust to the politicians with their vote and hope that there would be changes what they are expecting in society, they are trying to do something small by themselves in their community or in their networks, etc. And there has been also ideas that the citizenship is changing in society, especially like when we are talking about European societies or post-industrialized societies, that it used to be that dutiful citizens kind of felt the obligation to participate in government-centered activities, joining civic society organizations, and express interest to the parties and other organizations. And they used to be more informed about the issues and the government by following social media, by following mass media. But nowadays we can discuss about actualizing citizenship, which is which kind of points to the issue that to the diminished sense of government obligation, and sets a higher sense of individual purpose as the main role in citizenship. Maybe I will. It will become a bit more clear with the next slide. Actually, Bennett and Segerberg, they are also suggesting that the affordances of social media have somehow changed the logic of participation. That in traditional organizations, maybe their organization that was more about building up the collective identity and to work for the common goals. So basically, individuals, when you are joining the organization, then you are expected to contribute to these common goals, and this is not so much about yourself, but somehow the most important thing is organization with these goals. And nowadays, what is enabled by social media is much more loose networks and co-production and sharing based on personal expressions. So public action is becoming much more personal and personal recognition or self-validation. Just to make the example actually is the same one. The authors have developed this theory. Well, older people maybe remember the Occupy movement. So, which is 10 years ago. So basically, if you remember the Occupy movement, what did it happen? Of course, first people went to the street to occupy the parts in New York and later in many other parts of the world. But big part of that was was going on in social media. And one of the central claims of this movement was that there is only 1% of the people in the world who are doing well, and for 99% there are a lot of troubles because Occupy movement, if you remember, it started in economic crisis 15 years ago. And what does it mean that it's more personal? Then social media was full of these pictures that people were wearing some kind of notes that I'm the 99%, and there was a personal story what has happened to him or her. So basically everybody was telling their personal story, but that somehow became the part of the bigger whole. And that's why this kind of participation might be more easy and more interesting for a large amount of people in contrast to these traditional organizations where you have to work for the organization goals, which is maybe more interesting to the people who are really overtly active and make these kind of things also almost part of their professional life sometimes. Well, and this model is also very well fitted to explain, for example, TikTok trends. If you know a little bit about that, I do have also example about this, but I'm not going to show it here, but I can show it later. That in TikTok trends there is, for example, one issue what I have been investigating a little bit myself is a support to Navalny in Russia, and then basically there were 40,000 people who were within the same trend, which means that there was the same music, and then they expressed their ideas a little bit differently. Everybody could be creative in their personal ways, but it became kind of part of the bigger whole where tens of thousands young people were included. And we are talking nowadays, which is more recent concept about lived citizenship, which is basically referring to this idea that people's experiences and practice as a part of their everyday living is also part of their participation. And here the important thing is also that this lived citizenship stresses the importance of the transnational networks which are crossing the borders and can be considered as a new relationship of citizenship that they evoke. Well, some small example from Estonia. What I mean by all that, maybe it becomes a bit more clear, is that in Estonia it's very much that if you are looking at the statistics, then we as a result from different studies that there is only one small part of the young people who are active, and they usually are active in very different forms of participation, but majority of them, according to the statistics, are, well, I would call it invisible, but it could be also interpreted that they are passive. But according to some recent studies, it could be said that even young people who are not considering themselves active, they are actually pretty well informed about political topics and are interested in debates, but they are mostly interested in global social movements. For example, climate activism, LGBT movement, Black Lives Matters, rights for animals, etc. And these are maybe more popular things among younger generations and local politics. And even if we consider that not all young people, of course, but at least reasonably big amount of young people distance themselves from the local party politics, they are still actually expressing, or they are still, at least in my view, participating also politically in society, but this is more expressed through the local leadership or support of global new social movements, which are often performed online. So there are part of the people who are activists, who are really organizing the things and who are establishing these national organizations as well as NGOs by themselves, but then there is a bigger group of people who are interested about these issues, and they are supporting the movement, but maybe in more diluted ways. They are sometimes going to the events what are organized, or they are expressing their support through the social media, etc. How long I have been already talking? So I thought that otherwise I will talk all myself.
Roughly 15 minutes.
15? Okay, then I will do it very quickly. Otherwise, Maarja wouldn't have any time at all. Sorry about that. About the competencies, it's competencies is of course very complicated topic, and there are a lot of issues what you can consider. My aim here is not to give the exhaustive list, but just to mention a couple of issues that obviously political literacy is one of the things what is important, but besides that, there are also many other things which are rather important for participation, to communicate effectively. Then also studies show that the social capital is a pretty important thing to enable better civic engagement, and networks are offering different opportunities. So these are also things which are actually supported by the youth projects and different organizations. And there is also a lot of studies which are showing that competencies are developed through non-formal or informal learning in these different youth organizations, either bottom-up organizations, but also either official organizations or bottom-up organizations where what young people are doing themselves rather a lot. And I will finish with a couple of ideas of my recent article with my colleagues. We were analyzing non-formal and informal learning as a citizenship education, and we were comparing the views of young people and youth policymakers. And maybe the most important things to outline here is that the policymakers tend to focus to top-down youth organizations only when we are talking about non-formal education. And they were also emphasizing all the time that the proportion of politically passive young people is alarmingly high. Well, this analysis is about Estonia, but this second half of the sentence also is evident internationally, like results from the international projects in Europe. The tendency seems to be the same, that youth policymakers tend to use this passive-active division and see all the young people who are not involved to this top-down organizations as passive. And in this article, we were actually analyzing different type of young people from different type of organizations, and from top-down organizations, in Estonian case, youth councils, which has been a very successful project in Estonia. They were pretty happy with all the support what they have given, and also the big benefits of their work in youth council to enable them to better participate in society. But the participants from bottom-up organizations, and that refers to this new social movements organizations, they were relatively external to the structures of state-based politics, so they were remaining maybe more invisible, and also they felt that they don't get enough support. There is a question, of course, is that there are support mechanisms actually also for them, but they are not so well aware of that. And to end my part with a positive thing that also these kind of bottom-up organizations are supported. For example, in Erasmus Plus, I know at least one good example that one of the employees who is not present here was contacting herself Estonian Fridays for Future and offering some support. But this is also like little bit a sign that young people from this type of organizations they don't know or don't apply it for themselves. So Erasmus Plus has done a good job to reach out to them as well. But now I will give the word to Maarja.
I'm Alina's colleague from Tallinn University, and as per introduction, just a fresh PhD student who's just started and participating in an EU-funded project about democracy and education. And perhaps this is why I chose to focus in my part on education and learning, and trying to kind of show the connection to the new forms of participation. So basically, we learn to be citizens through informal means, but also in formal education. And it is in the formal education where this kind of influence to be a certain kind of citizen takes place, especially through like curriculum. And we know that at least to some extent education shapes our common identity and values and norms in the society. And not very long ago, when civic education became like a thing in the 60s and then beyond, a lot of emphasis was put on being a good citizen who was loyal and hardworking and patriotic. But as times have changed, also this emphasis has changed. I couldn't find the picture from Europe, so I put the picture from the United States because it was a cool picture. But here is an example from Estonia. It hasn't really disappeared. We are still, at least to some extent, emphasizing these things. And in different states, it is either more or less. Here is a celebration of Estonian Independence Day in a local school in Estonia, Nisi. However, in the EU, when you think about it, what we have been discussing and what the concept paper talks about, we have a certain idea of what kind of citizen is a good citizen, what kind of society we want. How many of you have read your national educational curriculum and strategies? Oh, good, very good. So, what does it say about the society and the citizen? Probably, it says something what we already, our previous presenter showed you, the Council of Europe's competence for democratic culture. And it emphasizes things like taking initiative and being engaged and being a critical thinker, knowing how to spot fake news and recognizing the value of cultural diversity is a very big thing. So idea of pluralism, protecting democracy. Democracy in itself is a value, and at least in the Estonian national curriculum, it is emphasized quite many times. I also brought an example from the OECD. Perhaps you have seen the learning framework before. When we think about education in general, according to the OECD learning framework, the whole purpose of education is societal and individual well-being. And behind that idea of societal well-being, there are so many assumptions and values, some of which, or actually most of which, align with the European civic competence framework. But interestingly, it adds creating new value, which brings in more strongly the entrepreneurial aspect, which also aligns with kind of new conceptions, sort of liberal democratic conceptions of who or what kind of citizen we want. We don't just want somebody who actively goes and votes and perhaps participates in the local council, but knows how to solve problems, create something new, initiate, bring some other people together, handles conflict, because there's a lot of conflict, a lot of global crisis, a lot of uncertainty. So basically, through education, we are trying to create the kind of citizen that knows and handles all these things. There's a slide from a report from Catch EU project, and Alina already mentioned also that quite a lot of young people are these kind of standby citizens. They are not perhaps really actively engaged in the political sense, but they still care to some extent. So those two boxes together are about 46% of young people in Europe. I think it's based only on 6 countries, but we can more or less generalize. And these two boxes are 40%. So these are the dissatisfied citizens. And now when we think about education, to what extent is the way we educate, mostly I mean now formally, to what extent does this play a role in this picture? So where and how can young people develop these cool competencies that we just looked at? Being a critical, active citizen and responsible citizen. When we look at research, when it comes to schools and formal education, I'm referencing a couple of articles. Basically, what we know is that, yes, it is important that we have civic lessons in schools, but they are not enough, clearly. What matters is the classroom and school culture. And some schools are doing better in that regard, and some not so well. It's still very hierarchical. But is this important? Whether children and youth get that experience of participation in the school, whether they have opportunities for discussion, dialogue, debate, can they make up their own mind, and all that, and then those real opportunities for participation and problem solving. And what we have found in Estonia is that there are some some examples of schools that really do it. They do it through project-based learning, and there are various initiatives, and I'll mention some of them later. But by and large, civics lessons have still been kind of theory-based, and the previous ICC report, I don't know the results of the new one, but the previous ones say that yes, theoretical knowledge is pretty good, but it does not necessarily translate into practice. So there are really good examples. Some already were mentioned in the concept paper as well, like participatory budgeting in schools, which is now in the past few years has taken off in Estonian schools as well. Gutsy Go, if you haven't heard about this program, Google it, it's really cool. It started in Finland, and now it has been in Estonia for 3 years. Tallinn municipality has been doing it in 6 or 7 schools, and they have expanded it with an Erasmus Plus project to Latvia, and maybe also Lithuania, I can't remember. And they work with schools, and they bring together school teachers, youth workers, and in the latest round also municipal police joined in. Peace Jam, a global program, also works with schools and youth workers. In Estonia, we have Kogukonna Praktika, which is like a community-based practice where students can go to an NGO for a practice of 10 hours. Mondo, global education NGO who does lots of activities with teachers. So, and Provikivi, where we have tried to take project-based learning to schools and connect youth to real societal challenges and try to embed it into the curriculum. Because the challenge is for many teachers how to really embed it into your lesson so that it's not an extra thing, but it actually is connected to everything that we are learning. Pretty sure I forgot something I wanted to say, but anyway, what I want to say now is that formal learning is very important. And we see good examples of how it is already connected better to the community, the youth center, the local municipality. But also we see that many schools still don't do it because it takes a little bit of extra effort. It takes willingness. It takes the buy-in of the school principal. Just before we were having a discussion in the table there of how difficult it is sometimes to get the teachers on board and get the school on board, and the students on board, because I don't know how it is in your country, but the lesson is holy in Estonia. Oftentimes, like you cannot take my math lesson. Like we only have so few. When another teacher wants to come and say, okay, we have this really cool project. Like, can we take your student from this lesson, like this one lesson? And actually, Gutsy Go has a brilliant example in Estonia. They got the whole week off with teachers and 8th graders. The school leaders came on board. Need to probably research exactly their tactics, but there are good examples. And how this kind of formal learning and informal side of learning and the partnerships are combined. Yeah. And finally, new forms of governance. So, democracy. By and large, there's an understanding that democracy is sort of in a crisis. There's increasing polarization and extremism, and with all the global crises and pandemics, and kind of people feel disengaged and disenchanted with a representative democracy. It's not only youth who don't really want to engage, but also grown-ups. And the VDEM report, again, if you haven't seen it, I recommend it. It's a great report, 2022. They, according to them, we are back to the 1986 in terms of the level of democracy in the world. Yes. So, and it has rapidly happened over the past few years. 70% of world's population live in autocracies. And even when we think about Europe, you might have seen the more extreme parties kind of becoming prominent. We can talk about Poland and Hungary, for example, but also in other countries we see kind of more of these, more of the rise of illiberalism. So it's just something to bear in mind when we talk about the role of learning for democracy, both in the formal setting and informal setting. But on the other hand, now Airi mentioned like all the global movements, and Alina, sorry, mentioned the global movements, and youth kind of they kind of still participate. So what can we do? There is a trend also for kind of more open governance and government as a partner, and all these notions of open innovation, citizen assemblies, crowdsourcing ideas, etc., etc. I'd like to I think I'm quite in time. Okay, I had one more video. I wanted to mention also open schooling is like one example of the same type of thing that happens in governance. It's this sort of co-creative way of approaching learning through different partnerships. And I'm not sure if can I somehow, I don't know if they work in the PowerPoint because they were earlier.
It doesn't. Now he opens the PowerPoint, it doesn't work. Okay. Sorry.
No worries. I'll just tell you. So a couple of years ago, a colleague of mine created like a co-creation process in Võru County in south of Estonia. It's a small rural county. And they organized it based on a social hackathon method. Who of you knows what a hackathon is? Okay, most of you. Good. And basically all these co-creative methods help engage and help create sort of ownership for the participants of the processes. So let's say we have a local problem or we need to develop some services. When people participate, they have more ownership, and it gives more democratic legitimacy to the decisions and to the things that are developed. Also, schools participated in that to some extent. There is a way, there could be a way through these kind of co-creative methods to bridge formal learning and informal learning. And actually, there was another video I can share later with these links of what an Estonian government is doing on ministerial level. They bring together different ministries and different other public institutions and also other people into these sort of innovation processes to tackle real problems. So the culture of innovation is spreading, and this is the kind of new forms of governance for me, where, in my opinion, where it's not only anymore about electing your official and doing the dirty politics, which I do think politics is still very important. But it's creating these alternative spaces of participation and governance. And I think it holds a huge potential for youth participation. And then I had another video about open schooling, which you can see later. Did I have something else? Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to mention, because I think I still have a few more minutes. We had with some partners from Finland and Sweden and Georgia. Last year we explored how ready local municipalities would be for co-creation with youth. And again, it's very different. Some are more ready, some less. But we were thinking of organizing an experiment in Estonia where local municipality co-creation is embedded in the schools and youth centers. We haven't done it yet, and then bring in digital platform as well. So, but if anyone is interested in that idea, come and speak with me later. And to sum up, yes, education is important, I think so. What we have also found from my project experience is the need to start early. We don't have to, in education learning, we don't prepare youth for the future, but they need to participate right away from kindergarten up until the university. Yes, that I already said. And how to embed it better to actual governance processes, that's the challenge, because that's also the gap that Alina mentioned, that how at least policymakers see it, like youth are disengaged because they don't participate in the way we expect them to. On the other hand, youth do want to be engaged and they do it in alternative ways. So how do we kind of embed and merge these two things, and these kind of co-creative governance methods, I believe, could be the bridge.
I think again, especially from the school's perspective, one thing is sort of when we talk about entrepreneurship education, we almost always concentrate on the business side of entrepreneurship. I think one thing that has to change in the longer run is also that we have to sort of put more effort into talking about the social entrepreneurship side in schools. Because the value base that sort of the social entrepreneurs can create in their local governance once they grow up or whatever can be much more useful than just another business, you know. So the question is that how can we make more people value also the social entrepreneurship side of the entrepreneurship education, I would say.
Okay, so yes, I absolutely agree with you. Not just social entrepreneurship, which still has a business component, but social innovation. And this is where I believe how we can do it is through purposefully doing it, right? So purposefully having that in the curriculum, giving those spaces and opportunities for problem solving of these social issues in the community. I will talk about the example of Proovikivi later on, where students went to the local community, they looked around, like they interviewed people, they talked to their families, and they did it all as part of an English lesson. So giving those opportunities where they can problem solve and having those tools like design thinking, where they try to solve a real life problem and they see how it is connected to what they are learning.
Thank you. Red.
My question or thought is more going back to what you were saying, Alina, about young people being more concerned of global social questions rather than the local politics or state politics. And I feel it has a lot to do with the detachment of the politics from young people's concern. And because of the population size or the percentage, the voters' percentage amongst the rest, is such insignificant for the politicals. They don't really maybe also try harder. But has there been any investigation or research done on the political platforms and how they could become more talking to young people rather than changing young people and not the system?
About research, I'm not very sure. At least I don't remember at the moment. Do you remember anything? But yeah, well, this is basically I'm expressing my opinion is that one of the reasons why young people in Estonia, or one more comment actually, is that I think that state politics is especially something what is where young people, at least in Estonian context, are least interested. Because in a local politics, sometimes it's so and so. It also depends on the local governments, etc. And as I was saying, that people might be interested in doing the things in their community locally. But about these topics in state politics, well, I would think that it's obviously like an easy solution, which corresponds what I was talking, that if these topics, what the young people are interested about, would be more discussed or targeted in state politics, that would at least give some kind of opportunity that maybe more young people would be interested about these things. But yeah, about the studies, actually, I don't know if there is any. Do you want to add?
I want to add that, of course, I don't recall any studies right now, but one problem that I've heard mentioned is, at least in Estonia, I don't know how it is in your countries, but politics doesn't get into the school. It's frowned upon if a politician goes to school. It's considered like, oh, your school aligns with this party, or why is this politician like here? So actually, in the school years, which school up to a certain point is compulsory, we don't even really expose young people to politicians or politics very much. And also the student representation is not very political in school. It's usually organizing fun events and like being active in sort of social way, perhaps, but it's not very political, perhaps. So just want to say that there's a bit of a gap there as well.
And of course, there is a gap that there is a mistrust towards like this, let's say, state-based politics. That many young people who are actually pretty active, at least according to my definitions, also from my own studies previously, when we have been doing interviews and focus groups, etc. They are just saying that they are not interested about any politics. They are not active. They don't do anything, and then later they are talking about every kind of stuff what they are actually doing. But somehow they are making these distinctions that we don't want to do anything with. Well, I'm a little bit exaggerating. It's not so bad, but we are not doing something. We don't want to be involved in dirty politics, but we are doing the other things what we are considering important. Well. In our community or the issues which are related to social justice, etc.
Thanks. There's one more question here.
Yeah, it's maybe just one thing that I would like to point out about youth dialogue, which was not mentioned on any point in the presentation, but I think one thing that is very crucial when we are talking about civic education is that young people really need to see what happens if they participate. And in youth dialogue, it has so many times happened that like decision makers were for the first time actually listening to young people. And then when they saw that actually as a consequence of their participation, something has been happening in the local and then on the national level as well, we managed to reach quite a lot of stuff as well. Then it was much easier to engage them next time as well. So I think it's also really important that like all of this like youth dialogue, or as it was previously called structured dialogue, it was super complicated to explain it to young people. But then once they saw actually the results, and this is I think a crucial thing, that with the decision makers, it's a lot of times that like young people are not so important because they're not the voters. But then like cooperating with them and listening with them can bring like exactly like the social innovation that decision makers are not even seeing in their local communities. And this is I think like one of the crucial moments as well. And I see here a lot of like a big role of youth work as well in the regard that like we need to help to support these processes, because this is in the end crucial, that it's not just like it doesn't stay on the level decision makers are promising something but then nothing happens, but actually like implementing as well their promises then in reality, and then also like the spin of why young people are participating is actually growing.
Yes, very good point. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we have one more, our last one for this round.
Hello. The question about schools caught my attention in terms how schools are cooperating or not cooperating in a way when you want to implement certain projects in them. I am a school English language teacher in elementary school, but we also run an association of English language teachers in Montenegro. So what I believe is somehow misunderstood among all of the organizations who want to take part in school life is the way schools function and the timeline when those activities should be announced to schools. I've had experience in Montenegro where organizations just would like to enter school and do activities without previously going through the procedures how to enter schools and how to put that project in practice with the, for example, in Montenegro you need to have approval of Ministry of Education. None of the schools can open the doors for you if you do not have that letter of support. So that's like the first step that you need to do. So in planning of the activities to be done in school, every organization should do that background check in the ways how and when to reach the schools. And one very specific point of view is actually if a school does not put it in the annual plan, and it is done in August and September, it is very difficult for every school to later edit or add activities to teachers and students because it has its form and how it functions. Maybe it doesn't seem so to someone who is looking from side, but that is something that can make your lives easier in terms of when you are planning activities. Agree everything with schools in August, September to be implemented throughout the year. So that is practical advice.
Yes, very good point. And the procedure differs per country. Like in Estonia, you don't really need the Ministry of Education approval, but in Montenegro you do. So bear in mind what is the specifics of your country. Thank you.